Welcome to the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investing Show, where I interview the nation's top real estate entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and other amazing entrepreneurs to help educate and inspire you to take your business and your life to the next level. My goal is to add tremendous value to you during every single episode of this show. If you get value, I'd love it if you subscribe on your favorite podcast player, subscribe on YouTube, and my very favorite, please share this with your community so we can impact even more entrepreneurs. Let's start today's show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. This is going to be an exciting episode. We're going to talk about something that I've been really interested in. It's called co-living. And so it's exactly as you imagine. Instead of renting your house to one person or one family, you rent the bedrooms to multiple people. And it's a way to effectively make more money on each bedroom, if you will. In fact, I've done this before. When I was in college, by the way, I lived in a 4-bedroom apartment, and we had 4 leases. Like, we all had individual leases, and they just kind of placed us. It just hit me that I've actually done this before. Before it was as popular as it was now. So anyway, I'm here with Sam, and Sam is a co-living expert. So Sam, what's up, buddy?
Man, thanks, Mike, for having me on the show. Appreciate it. I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Man. Excited to chat about this and dive in a little bit.
Yeah, because, at the end of the day, I was just talking about this on another recent show. I don't know if you know Isabel Guarino, but we were talking about they do residential assisted living, which is assisted living for the aging population that kind of needs help, right? And we were just talking about the idea of this generally, like, how do you make you got a box, right, which is your house. Like, how do you squeeze more money out of that house? And so some people are always trying to do more units to grow, and some people are like, how can I make more money from the house I already have? And so it's harder and harder to be a volume player. And so how do you kind of squeeze more juice out of that piece of fruit you've already got in your hand? And so co-living might be one of those ways, huh?
I think it definitely is. I mean, imagine being able to hit your financial freedom numbers with maybe 3 homes, 4 homes, We do a seminar once a month, and I'll bring people onto this challenge. And one of the things I'll teach them is I'll show them what the cash flow on a co-living home can be if they do the model correctly. And then on day 3 of this, we do this 5-day challenge. On day 3 of this challenge, I'll ask them, how many homes, based on what we've shown you, how many homes do you need to hit your first level of financial freedom? And out of 150 people, it's usually like 1, 2, 3. I mean, the chat just blows up. And rarely do I ever see a number above 5 homes that people would need to achieve their first level, not like flying private jets, whatever level, but like first level of financial freedom. So it's a powerful strategy indeed, for sure.
Well, let's dive into it. Before we get started, I know you didn't. This isn't exactly where you started. So tell us a little bit about how you got started in the real estate space, and then how you found your way into co-living, and then we'll kind of jump into what even co-living even is. So tell us about you first.
Yeah, I mean, my story starts, I guess, coming from a non-traditional family that decided to homeschool other kids before homeschooling was cool. So my parents were always kind of these limit pushers, and they were just very creative. They were like doing crazy things, like they were hippies before being a hippie was cool. They were juicing, they were eating buckwheat and millet and quinoa and all this crazy stuff. They were like health nuts, and so we just kind of got, I got it very naturally to be a little different, and to try to be different. And my parents were definitely different. Homeschooled, 8 kids, big family, raised in the country, And so, growing up, they put me in martial arts really young, and I had this like really unique opportunity. Call it Providence, God, whatever you want to call it. Like I got the opportunity to buy the martial arts school I was training in at the age of 16. Which every time I say this on a podcast or something like this, still blows my mind. My parents loaned me $15,000. And my parents were not wealthy. Like $15,000, like that was a lot of money for them.
Yeah.
Somehow they loaned that to their 16-year-old to buy the school.
That's a lot of money for hippies.
It is a lot of money for hippies, exactly. And my parents, my dad signed a 5-year commercial lease on the building too, because obviously I couldn't sign. I was underage. Anyway, crazy story. I decided to prove to my parents that I could be successful, and everybody else in my world that thought I was a nobody, And so I went out and I built this chain of martial arts schools, long story short, over a decade. So from 16 to basically 30, so I got, decade and a half, I built a chain of martial arts schools across Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and exited that business 2 years ago. But that gave me the foundation for entrepreneurship for sure, and some hiring skills and some mentorships, and the importance of being a part of communities like I know you run, Mike, and like things like that are just so important. And so, and then along the way, I was in a mastermind at the time. And my mentors just kind of pulled me aside and said, Sam, your business is doing well. And this was 2012, 2015, maybe 2015. They were like, hey, your business is doing well, but you need to skim money up. Like, don't do what all traditional small business owners do, which is they put their money back in the business, quote unquote.
Right.
So they don't have a lot to show for it, right? They said, skim it off the top and buy real estate. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. Well, then COVID comes and like shuts our whole business down. We take a huge hit with COVID because we're brick and mortar. Very tactile sport. Like we're in a room, touching people, throwing them to the ground, wrestling them. Like not good for a couple of years of COVID. So gosh, I mean, that was what kind of first hit me with like, maybe I should be doing something else. So I moved into, we rebuilt the business back. We did good. Obviously, government gave us literally hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to stay open and to pay our staff. And so it turned out to not be too bad. But I moved, very strongly into real estate at that time. Brandon Turner's a good friend of mine, and he at the time was still the host of Bigger Pockets. And he said, hey, why don't you come on to Bigger Pockets? And I didn't listen to Bigger Pockets before I was on. And then I realized they have just a massive, massive reach. And so we got a lot of people reaching out to us saying, what's this co-living thing? Because I was just renting homes by the room. And we just decided to try to help people do what we've been doing for the last decade. I'd been investing in my first co-living home was 2011 and kind of been doing it at a small scale. I know we're going to dive into that, but that's a little bit about my story. What kind of gets me to today where now I build co-living buildings, teach co-living, and just spread the word about I'm an evangelist for co-living.
Yeah. So what is co-living? I mean, it's, I could take a shot at it. I know it's renting, obviously, to multiple people, but I know it's also more than that. So what is co-living?
Yeah, when I'm on stage talking about this, I'll usually just ask people if they've ever had a roommate, which you just talked about having a roommate before. And I'm like, cool, guys, that's it. Thanks for coming to the speech. Like, it's having a roommate. That's really what it is. Like, and it really, truly is that. It's renting out rooms to homes. I think it's renting out rooms and homes instead of the whole home to a family. So you're renting out each individual room. They're sharing a common space in a kitchen. They have their own private lock on their door. So it kind of feels, here's the phrase that I want people to wrap their head around. As inflation continues and things get more expensive in America, which with tariffs and not having as many illegal immigrants here, I see no world in which that doesn't get a little bit more expensive. But as that happens, people need more affordable housing, and the room is the new apartment. And this phrase didn't come from me. This phrase actually came from a guy who called to make fun of me from Europe. He lives in Berlin, and he heard my episode on Bigger Pockets, and he says, Sam, you're talking about this strategy called co-living as if it's new. He said, it's not new, man. He goes, we've been living this way in Europe for decades. He goes, in Berlin, nobody rents an apartment in Berlin. It's so freaking expensive to live in Berlin. He goes, everybody rents a room, like especially millennials, they rent a room. And he tells me this crazy story about how he built a software company. And the only way he could get software engineers to come work for them is if he included their housing. Because even though he was paying them a huge salary, once they looked at the cost of Berlin to live, none of them would move there. And he wanted to have like an in-person team. So he started building co-living buildings from the ground up and offering the room as part of the salary package. And that's the only way he could build a software company. So anyway, he's crazy kind of story. And so that is really co-living is, it's a, we've been having roommates for decades, but what I think is new is the fact that we can now do it at scale, professionally managed with systems in place that are designed to reduce conflict and increase the income of these homes. So I think that's the difference, is the professional level that we're doing it at.
Yeah. And I honestly, I don't think I've ever talked about this on a podcast before, but I am a GP in a bunch of multifamily, and honestly, more than half of our multifamily, hundreds of millions of dollars in properties, and more than half of our multifamily right now is student housing, and they're and some of them we converted to that because you get more
interesting
and rent as a total by leasing out 3 or 4 bedrooms.
That's right.
And so one of the benefits of that, of course, we've had some bumps too when COVID happened, like student enrollment is down. I think college enrollment is generally down these days for the past few years because a lot of people are, for a lot of reasons we don't have to get into. But
they're waking up.
That's right. There's a lot of ways to make money, and it doesn't necessarily have to include, formal education. And there's a lot of ways to get education these days that isn't like going off to university, right? But we could have a whole nother show about that. But the reality is some of the benefits are if the rent is late, it might be a quarter of the rent versus all the rent, right? Or if somebody like flakes out and breaks a lease, it might be a quarter of that lease instead of the whole thing effectively, right?
Yeah, huge. We call it vacancy protection.
Yeah.
We're like, hey, I've owned co-living homes with anywhere from 4 people sharing that home to 11 people sharing that home.
Yeah.
Big homes, 11 people. I know that might sound crazy, but we've got the systems in place to do it. And I have never had a vacant home. Ever, unless obviously at the beginning when I'm buying it, I'm converting.
Sure,
but
yeah.
imagine being able to look at your entire portfolio over a decade and a half and saying, I have never had I've had 4 people leave out of 8 bedrooms before, but that's still half of the people paying you
Right.
rent.
Yeah.
That's valuable.
Yep. So it provides, the biggest thing is it's for I guess the why is for the investor, it's protection of against vacancies or full vacancies.
Yeah.
Higher rent overall, which I'd love to kind of hear you talk about, like what the economics look like.
Yeah.
And then it's also providing affordable housing for people that can't afford a whole house or a whole apartment, that they don't need the whole thing anyway, maybe, right?
Yeah. Let's hit on the affordable housing for a second. I mean, I get comments on my Facebook ads and things like that. Maybe I'm giving a tour of a 10-bedroom home, and people just take a dump all over it, man. They're just like, this is the worst thing ever. This is not the American dream. This is crazy. Why would it, you're packing people in there. And
Not
my
the
philosophy
American
is
dream.
like, there are 600,000 people that will be homeless tonight, February 18th, 2025, in America. This is a clean, quiet, safe bedroom. You think that's not better than living underneath? I mean, you and I were just both in Vegas at a conference. I don't know if you've ever seen, but Vegas has all these tunnels underneath the strip that are filled with homeless people. There's some crazy YouTube documentaries on this of
wow.
thousands of people live under the strip on these tunnels that are actually designed to keep the flooding out. So these people die when the floods come in.
Oh,
It's crazy, right? And so that's what we're dealing with. People have no perspective, right? And so it's yes.
Well, there's haters on social media like that. That's let's say this. Screw them. Okay, but
Yeah,
anyway,
exactly.
everybody's got a pen and an opinion. So
That's
anyway.
fair. That's fair. But it does, man. It's not just me coming out and being egotistical and saying that this can solve affordable housing. It's not. It's proven. The U.S. Department for Housing and Urban Development has come out. You can now use housing choice vouchers, previously known as Section 8 vouchers. You can use those for a co-living room now, so that you can get guaranteed government-backed rent on a co-living home. That's pretty cool. They've come out and said, we believe this is a viable option to solve affordable housing. I'm paraphrasing, but that's just not. That's me. That's HUD saying that, right?
Yeah.
So it's huge, and we have a
there's not
housing
enough
crisis.
development going on to build more housing, right? So you got to
right.
find ways to get creative. And this, truthfully, I mean,
That's
I'm
right.
not planning to turn my house into a co-living space, but I can tell you, it's my wife and I, and we have one son who's 17. We've lived in the same house for 15 years.
Right, right.
It's big enough for a few families.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I'm not going to do that with my house, but there's a lot of wasted space. I'm
right.
saying, for people that, especially if people are on hard times, they might. I mean, this might be a different model, but they could rent. Obviously, historically, people rent out rooms in their own house, possibly too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, that happens all the time. That's how I started. My first 6 homes were me living in them, renting out the rooms.
It's it's typically referred to as house hacking, right? So
Exactly.
you own the house and you're renting out some of the bedrooms. And
best
actually,
way
there's
to
a
get
guy that works
started.
for me that does it. House that he lived, his kids are all out of the house, and they came back after college or whatever. And now he's like, well, you got to pay me rent, and your buddy wants to live in there. It's like, fine. He's like, so now he's lives for free because he's renting out the bedroom. So
that's a great way to get started. My brother's a great example of that. He just bought a house a little while ago, and now he does co-living in it, and it nets him. I mean, it more than pays for everything that he has. It nets him $1,500 a month off one house, and that's
awesome.
That's with him only putting 3 or 5% down. So he's got he's mortgaging 95% of that property, and it's a little bit of money down, and so 100%.
So people could house hack and live there and rent it out, but what you mainly are talking about is as a business, right? So I have a whole rental portfolio. Like, how do I rent out? How can I turn that into co-living instead of individual leases possibly? So let's just talk about who is the avatar for this? Is it just individuals? Like, you're not necessarily renting out to multiple families, right? Or am I wrong?
Mostly, if let's say there's 7 rooms in a home, and one of those rooms has a private entrance, and you have enough parking at that home, sometimes we will allow a couple to rent a room. But most of the time, it's single room occupancy. So if a family wants to rent it or a couple wants to rent it, they're gonna have to get 2 rooms. That's normally our model. Now, some of that is changing, and I think we will start allowing more. Maybe someone, because again, if the room is the new apartment, then I need to be able to that room is my apartment, and I want to be able to share that with someone that I love. You might have to charge extra for different people based on utilities and things like that, but that model is slowly changing. We're starting to see some co-living companies kind of open up and actually allow like kids in the homes with their whereas that was very strictly prohibitive in 3 years ago. So this model is evolving. It's evolving fast, and it's really coming along fast. So.
Yeah.
But most of the time, yes, it's going to be people that are, in between, 19 years old and 30 that are kind of up and going and getting on their feet, and they want to save money. And then we also have a population that's 50 years old and older that are maybe went through a divorce or significant other passed away, or they're on Social Security, or they're on some sort of disability, and they're on a little bit more of a fixed income, and things have just gotten so expensive they can't afford it anymore. So but really what you want to look at is who in that city makes between $10 to $25 an hour. Who in that city makes $20,000 to $40,000 a year. And in every city, in every major city in the United States, there are hundreds of thousands of people that make that level of income. They could work for an airport. They could work for an Amazon distribution center. They could work for a hospital. They could work for a university, right? So there's major employers. They could work for a Target distribution center, Walmart distribution center, Walmart. It's Walmart in general. It's thousands and thousands of employees, maybe tens of thousands of employees per Walmart if you count part-timers. So we want to be within a commute's distance. Now, it could be a bus drive distance, a walking distance of those employers. I just recently put a house under contract for one of my Inner Circle Platinum students with this done-for-you program where we find the houses for them, and we found this home that's within walking distance of an Amazon distribution center. And I was like, dude, this is probably going to rent in a day. Like, they can literally walk, get the room. So that type of stuff you need to really, really, really be thinking about.
Yeah.
And that's who's here. It's really workforce housing. That's what we're trying to solve. It's just easy, simple workforce housing. And it's taking off. The governor of Colorado just came out and said, I am so tired of cities trying to regulate how many people can live in a home. So he made a statewide bill that said it's illegal for any local jurisdiction, like a county or a city, to regulate the number of unrelated people that live in a home. Because he's like, guys, if 8 adults want to get together and live in a home together, like, that's not the government's business. So there's all these states that are just really paving the way because they realize that this is an affordable housing solve. It's not the only solution, but it is a big solution.
Right. So how do you, as the property owner or a manager, deal with, not everybody listening to this will resonate with this, but I've had some crappy roommates before.
Yeah.
And these are people that I chose to live with. Like, these are my friends. And so in this instance, you're getting roommates that you didn't necessarily choose to live with. But how do you deal with, like, one of them, like, always leaves their damn dishes in the sink? Like, pets, maybe you just don't allow them. Like, how do you deal with people, like, that make the common areas, like undesirable, and you're like, I hate living here. So how do you maintain that? Because obviously you don't want them to be so transient that it's like, if you don't like it here, you can move out, and you want people to kind of stay, right? So how do you deal with like common areas? I'm curious.
Yeah, man. There's probably 3 big ways that we handle like that challenge of common areas and also just tension in general, right? One is setting clear expectations from the beginning. So we have a whole onboarding process where they have to initial a set of house rules, as silly as that might sound. We're very clear about what is going to happen in this. And one of those rules is like absolutely 0 personal items in the common space unless you're actively using it. And we have cleaners that come in. They'll clean the common spaces once or twice a month. And if they see something in the common area, their SOP is to take it, put it in a bin. They leave a nice little note that says, don't forget this is a co-living space. Your item is in the bin. If it's here next week, we're throwing it away. So if it's a laptop, we're throwing it and that's all set from an expectation standpoint, right?
Okay.
So I say all that to say, like, there's systems and things you've got to kind of figure out. And that's why people are getting insane levels of cash flow right now from this asset class, is because there's nuances that not everybody's willing to take on. And life is a risk reward, man, right? Life is a work reward. So we're getting...
You got to be willing to do hard things.
You got to be willing to do hard things in order to do this. So of course it's not going to be the easiest thing in the world, and you're cash flowing thousands of dollars a month per home. It's just not going to happen, right? So there's nuances. But look, we've been doing this a decade and a half, and so the second way is just having a system and an SOP for every little thing that could come up. And that can give you things you wouldn't even think about, like, man, someone's got a heater in the room, and we don't allow that without previous permission, right? Someone's got an AC. We can't put too much. Someone's playing their TV too late at night. Someone is leaving things in the common area, like you mentioned. Someone's smoking when they shouldn't be. Someone is being too loud. Someone has an overnight guest that's staying over. Like there's, and I'm kind of saying this because, like, look, I don't mind if people get scared away from this asset class. I know what it can cash flow. That's why we have over 200, of these doors that we rent. And so like, hey, the longer other people stay out, the more cash flow there is for me for a long time. I say that somewhat playfully. Obviously, that's not my mindset on it. That's why I'm on here. Is to share
it's
the
not
word.
for everybody.
It's not for everybody.
Not everybody wants. I would say most of my rentals are kind of C plus, B minus type houses, and there's people that I talk to, over the years of like trying to figure out, well, what are you looking? Because I also wholesaled a lot of deals too, so I'm like, well, what are you looking for? And they're like, I was like, do you like C class properties? And then one guy said, we like F. He was like, I was like, nobody's ever said that out loud before. But anyway, there's something for everyone. And of course, there's people that only like A class properties too, which the reality is they don't really cash flow that well typically. But this show isn't for everyone. But if you're looking to make money, it is a way.
Yeah, and where I was going with that was imagine all those issues that we've dealt with. We know what the issues are going to be, and then we create a little mini SOP for every issue. And usually the general theme of that SOP is we warn them, we have some sort of more intense warning that threatens termination of their membership agreement, and then we actually terminate their membership agreement. Or it could be a warning and then a fine. If it's a cleanliness issue, a lot of times it'll be a warning and then a fine, and then termination if it becomes worse. There is all of these little things, and so it's as simple as like our virtual assistants actually handle the complaints. Like they can go in and be like, this is this issue. Here's the script we're sending them one. Here's the second time it comes up. And here's the third. And we've got even a whole system for people reporting things in the home that was designed by a conflict resolution expert. He designed a system where when they're reporting their issue, it kind of asks them simple, stupid questions like, have you talked with Johnny about this? What was the outcome of that? Like things that just long enough to make them fill it out, where if it's not a big issue, they won't fill it out. But if it is an issue, they will get to the end and they will fill it out. And then we hear about it and then our team handles it from there. So you've got to have stuff like that. If you don't have stuff like that, this is going to be the nightmare asset class that you're going to hate Mike and Sam for even bringing to your attention if you go try to do it. There are things you gotta have in place. But once you have those in place and once you get it done, now you've got what I believe is the highest cash flowing asset, maybe with the exception of a good 5-star luxury Airbnb, but then you're running a hotel, right? And it's like, well, do you want to take on that level?
It has its own issues.
It has its own set of issues, exactly. And so
let's talk about the economics. So obviously it's like, hey, this might be a little bit harder than a traditional rental, but what are the economics? So I'm sure it differs by market, but like if you were to say, hey, this is by itself, this house is $1,000 a month to rent or $2,000 a month. Like, what's the lift, I guess, by having individual rooms rented out?
So we won't even really look at a home unless it 3x's the gross revenue from single family. So if it would normally rent for $2,000, we need to be able to rent it for $6,000. And we have some crazy examples. I mean, I'll give like the vision of like, hey, we'll take a home that will rent for $2,000 to $2,500 or rent it for $8,500. I mean, so there's a huge delta in terms of what we're able to get based on maximizing that space. And so those are some extreme examples. I'm not saying that that's every case because it's definitely not. But I mean, we won't even really look at a house unless it's a minimum of $1,000 net after you pay manager after cash flow, right? And then we see examples of $1,500. I had a lady on my podcast the other day, beautiful lady with her family. She says she got one home in Houston. It's 12 rooms. And I was like, tell me the net. She goes, Sam, over the last 3 months, I've netted $5,000 a month off of one home. And it's like, granted, she put like 30% down on this house. She did the rehab for their own cash. But still, I mean, the fact that a single-family home, 12 people on average, I think, paying like $900 a month. So there you go. You got almost $10K coming in on one single-family home, and half that's profit. You get $5K for your expenses. Like these numbers aren't like.
Well, explain one thing I want you to explain though is you just said something that took a little shift here. A 12-bedroom home. So like most of my rentals are 3-2-2s. We probably have a couple of 4-2. We got some 3-1s. So, like, are you converting space? Are you dividing bedroom? Like, what are you doing to get that many bedrooms in a home? And is that typical? Like, if I said, hey, I've got 50 rentals in Dallas and a bunch of them are 3-2-2s and stuff like. Is there a way? Of course, it depends on the square footage of the house, but
square footage.
How do you subdivide these things to get more kind of bedrooms into houses?
Yeah, I'll give you the exact formula, man. It's like 1,500 square foot house is going to be 4 bedrooms. No matter, I don't care what the layout of that 1,500 square foot house is. I can get 4 bedrooms out of that. I've looked at 1,000 homes. I've looked at a bunch of thousands and thousands of homes. Every 250 square feet you add to that 1,500 is going to be an additional room according to our model. So you bring me a 1,750 square foot house, 5 rooms. 2,000 square foot house, 6 rooms. 2,250, 7 rooms. And on it goes. And we don't look at any homes that are less than 2,000 square feet, usually.
Yeah.
Now, when I first started this, to be fair, I'd look at much smaller homes. I only thought 3 people could share. But I kind of went on this journey of like, man, like, is it possible for 5 people to live together? What about 6? And I kind of went on this journey where I kind of upgraded, so to speak, the number of people sharing homes. And don't get me wrong, the homes got bigger as I went. But I had a bunch of just 4-bedroom homes when I first started. But that's the benefit of like having a mentor in this space is I have a good buddy lives in LA County, and he was going to buy a 4-bedroom home. And his mentor at the time, he just said, no, like, do not do anything less than 9 in LA. And he was like, 9? You got to be crazy. And now this guy has 2 9-bedroom homes, one nets $3,000 a month and one nets $4 in LA.
Wow.
And he's able to rent the rooms for an insane value compared to what I can rent them for in Charlotte. And this guy quit his 6-figure big sales job and like all 2 homes. I've had him on my show a couple of times because I'm just like, your story is crazy, man.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even live in the homes. It's not house hacking for him. He lives on the beach. Like he lives close to. He lives
so what are
close to
some
the
common?
water.
I'm being selfish. I'm thinking of my own rentals, and I think a lot of people would resonate with me having traditional houses as rentals. Like, what are some typical things you convert to bedrooms? Is it subdividing a large bedroom into 2 is probably one.
Yeah.
Turning a dining room, a formal dining room, into a bedroom, right?
Yeah.
Probably, and then converting garages. Is that a common?
Yeah, we convert garages to 1 or 2 rooms. Yeah, all the time.
Okay.
So you can convert garages, dining room. Really, it's like any extra space other than you leaving one common space for people to work. We'll furnish them and turn them into little workspaces. So for people to work, connect, eat, cook their food. Like that's what you need. You need the common space. Every other space is. And we're just doing what cities are already trying to do all around the United States, which is increase density in their cities so that they can have better and more cheaper and affordable housing. So But yes, you're converting every extra. The way we think about it is, if there's 600,000 people are going to be homeless tonight, and we got to solve that. If we have to solve the affordable housing crisis, and depending on which economist you talk to, we're 7 to 8 to 9 million affordable housing units short in America. So we're not talking like hundreds of thousands. Everybody asks me, is co-living saturated? I'm like, man, there's probably less than 100,000 co-living units in total in the United States. And we're millions short. So we're so far off from that. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
But, for us, we think of, a concept that most people are familiar with in real estate is the highest and the best use. What's the highest and the best use of a square foot that's not being used? Well, to be used for a bedroom. If we need to solve affordable housing, then it needs to be used for housing, right? And so we're converting every bit of space. Yeah, dining room. If there's a basement that has, an extra living room in it, great. We're going to convert that. If there's a basement that's unfinished, we're going to finish it and add 3 or 4 rooms. Make sure you have egresses for those rooms, but we're going to do that. If there's a garage, we don't rent out garages. We're going to convert it to one big room or 2 rooms and add some mini splits, right? We're going to do what we need to do to solve affordable housing, and it may sound crazy to some people, but the people that it sounds crazy to are probably living comfortable. They're not on the street.
Well, tell me this, like there are probably some cities that require so much square footage per bedroom and some of the things like that. But
every state does. Yeah, every state has a different requirement.
So like what are you up against? And you said some states are changing this because they're trying to solve affordable housing, but what are the common kind of regulation issues that you have to navigate in this model?
Yeah, the biggest one is just how many unrelated people they say the city says should be allowed to live in a home. And so that's the one you've got to navigate. Now we have a legal structure that's built on the backs of some of the biggest tech companies in this space, and it's how they get around. I don't want to say I'll get around because it's not about getting around, but it's playing in what I call
rules were meant to be broken, right?
It's playing in the gray. It's playing in a space that we think is like. We're not operating in a black area that's obviously wrong. We're operating in a space where we have good faith. This is a good faith legal argument of why we can do this. Yeah. And that argument a lot of times has to do with multiple different things. So I'll give kind of 3 big arguments that we make. Number 1, we're going to make the argument that there's something in the federal government has something called the Equal Access Rule. And basically it's the federal government's stab at creating, defining what a family is. And as you might imagine, Mike, the federal government's definition of a family is basically like if you act like a family, you think like a family, you kind of are like a family. Doesn't matter if you're the same, like regardless of sex or religion or whatever, you're a family. And so the federal government recognizes families in a very liberal, kind of open-ended way. And so we're putting people together that are frankly acting like a family, right? They're sharing a common space. They're sharing a kitchen. We're doing pizza nights, once a month or whatever or once a quarter for these people in these homes. So there's things that we're doing to bring these people together and create community in these homes. That's number 1. Number 2, we have a legal strategy where these people actually don't lease the home. They are buying into, you've met a country club. They're buying into a membership that gives them access to the home. And so really, I'm actually technically leasing my home to only one other company, one other corporation. That corporation then has hundreds of members that get to come and go. And so it's a little, that legal structure, which I'm not a lawyer and I'm not trying to be on your show giving legal advice, but it gives us more flexibility in how we operate. These are members. And so that
makes it way easier to essentially evict people too, right?
It is. You can just terminate their membership and get them out in 24 hours. You're exactly right. So we're kind of turning on the head the normal landlord-tenant relationship, and we have a really, truly, a true membership organization that people join and get to have these benefits.
That's how they do Airbnbs in Vegas too, is you basically become a member of an LLC, but the membership only lasts for the period you're renting. I mean, they just found ways to get around it.
It is. It's common. And I'm not. We spent.
God love entrepreneurs, man. I mean, we're solving world problems here.
We're trying to be creative, man, and I don't think we're trying to be creative in a bad way. I think we're trying to be creative to solve a problem. And then I think this brings me to my final point. The third kind of thing about the legalities is that when you start to look into why these unrelated regulations, these number of unrelated people were created. They were created post-World War II, and they were specifically designed to keep certain races and certain social economic groups out of certain neighborhoods. Like, hands down, if you don't believe me, you can go in. I mean, there's a county in Georgia. This is how their zoning code reads. Unlimited number of related people can live in a home. Up to 5 unrelated, and an unlimited number of domestic servants. When do you think that was written? Like, when do you think that was that's not relevant? So a lot of these are very outdated, frankly, extremely discriminatory in how a lot of these zoning codes were written. And they just need to be updated. And they haven't been updated for almost 100 years. And so it's like, no, these were designed to keep out prostitution houses a lot of times. That's not, undocumented immigrants. This is not what we're doing. We're going to
cover whorehouses on the next episode of this podcast.
Whorehouses version 2. That's right.
Just kidding. I'm kidding, but that's an interesting model as well. But anyway,
it is an interesting model. What's funny about that is I got a buddy who he had one single family home in his entire life, and the lady turned it into a strip club.
Oh,
and
nice.
He said, I will never own a home that I cannot just walk into at any point in time to check on the home, because she destroyed it and it cost him tens of thousands of dollars.
I've bought a few houses with stripper poles in them before, but that's a whole other story,
Well, that's why he does co-living now. He does co-living because he's like, I can walk into the common areas and I can check on this home at any time. I don't have to give notice. The common areas are truly common areas. We can walk in anytime. So there's some benefits to that from a real estate, checking on your asset kind of standpoint. But I get very passionate about the regulation side of things because I grew up in a 1,900 square foot house with 8 brothers and sisters, 2 parents, homeschooled on a 3-bedroom septic. So I'm 10 people and wait. How is it not a very high level of discrimination to say, 40 people can live in a home if you happen to be related? Oh, but 2 people can't. And by the way, 2 is a real, you go to Charlottesville, Virginia, the regulation says more than 2 people cannot live, more than 2 unrelated people cannot live in a home. That means if I'm living with my girlfriend that I'm not married to in a home and I have a buddy, I'm technically breaking the zoning rules. It's just, it's so far and so crazy that we're challenging that in a really cool way, and I think in a way that America needs right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Sam, fascinating stuff. I know you know a lot more about it. I know you have a podcast. If folks want to learn more about what you're doing, where do they go?
Yeah, man, our biggest way that we serve this community and people who want to learn how to solve affordable housing while at the same time doubling and tripling their cash flow is through a 5-day challenge where you come on, you join, and for an hour and a half a day, we do a deep dive. So we're going to just pull the curtain back and share with you everything about how you can start and launch and get your first co-living home full. From everything from acquiring it to managing it to filling it to regulations. We'll deep dive into all of that. So all people have to do that is go to www.scaleyourrealestate.com, get on the waiting list for the next challenge, and I look forward to seeing you guys live on a challenge.
I'm going to check that out myself.
Yeah, man, it's fun. We have a lot of fun.
Scaleyourrealestate.com.
Yeah.
Cool. Sam, thanks for joining us today.
Dude, this was fun. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you.
Everybody, hope you got some good value from today. There's a lot of ways to make money in real estate and a lot of ways to solve problems and build your own wealth and cash flow at the same time. And this is a fascinating way to consider it because I know a ton of real estate investors, and I don't know very many that are doing this yet, but I think it's a movement that's not going to slow down. So you should go check it out. So everybody, hope you had a great day. Hope you got some good information here. We'll see you on the next show. Thanks for joining us for today's show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing on your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. You can also check out the show's notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and even how to work with me directly one-on-one. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. See you on the next show.